I need a second. I'm very frightened.
I'm frightened too. Hold on. Let me take a swig of something. Hold on.
God. Just straight vodka.
Straight vodka. No. You know it's Sprite Zero on deck.
I know. Oh God, that sounds so good right now. I can't drink anything because of what I have on.
Stop.
I can't. I just
started to shake a little bit.
I'm just saying, creepers. I know the anticipation of these week over week. This is the finale. Know that. We have arrived. We are finally at the Halloween episode, which is going to be dropping. We're recording this or filming this on the 30th, so tomorrow.
We're filming it on the 30th in the middle of the day. And when I tell you I'm gonna walk out of my apartment and just start roaming the streets in the garb I'm in right now, I'm being dead serious.
Baby, I will say me too, but you haven't seen what I look like yet. So let's just hold there. I'm going to put my hand up and I'm going to turn my camera on.
Okay.
I'm so scared.
Also, I need creepers to know that when we log on to record, we each have our names in the bottom and yours says Precious Angel right now.
It couldn't be more appropriate.
And I have a feeling that it's not going to work with what you have on.
I'm so nervous. Okay. Well, this is it. The finale reveal of
Halloween,
the final costumes for CreepTime Halloween. Do you want to do the countdown?
I'm ready. Yeah, I'll do the countdown. 3, 2, 1. I can't. I don't want to look. Oh my!
I can't close my mouth. Holy!
I'm gonna be sick. Oh, you look. Okay, we need to get hired at Universal today.
You look where? Okay, I wish you could see me, but I'm shaking from what I just saw. This is. I'm gonna have to bleep this out. Maybe I won't. This is the most you have ever looked. This is amazing.
Okay, I need
look
you to know,
amazing.
I thought about you because I was like, it's the finale. Do I go for a lace front? I go for a lace front.
I'm literally crying.
And then you're like, your mother sucks.
Lovely day for an exorcism, Karis.
I am so shocked. You look incredible.
I did a makeup test on Friday, and I was like, if I can't pull this off, I won't do it. And I was like, it's a go. It's a go.
I'm so shocked that that's you that I'm looking at. How is that you?
It's me, Reagan. Your mother's in here with us, Karis. Would you like to leave a message?
Wait, why do we have to? Why do we have to stop doing these? I want it to be Halloween all year round.
I told you. We'll do a Thanksgiving one and we'll do a Christmas one. We'll both be turkeys. We'll both be Santa.
Holy crap. You look just like her.
Really? Thank you. That's
such
a... Okay.
No, seriously, you really do look just like her.
Thank you so much. I think it might have just...
Thank you so much.
I just want to say thank you so much. Also, the fact that the pink mic is still here.
Accepted.
Welcome to the red carpet, bitch. It's me,
live from
Reagan.
It's Reagan. Head starts spinning around instead of the 360 camera that they have. It's like the Reagan cam, and it's.
I know. There's no glam bot. It's literally just
glam bot.
I called my sister and immediately went. She was like, "My neck hurts," and I was like, "Why don't you just do this?" That wig is crazy. How is that on your... I need a lot of breakdown. Also, do you have a background? What's going on?
I have a background.
It's like, what is this tapestry?
I need to be in the lab.
You could work at Universal tonight. You have a shift tonight. You got to clock it in 2 hours.
Literally. And I'm bringing you with me, bitch. We would just, can you imagine if we showed up? That would be like, isn't that Disney's worst nightmare?
Absolutely.
Show up looking like the cast.
Oh, yeah. We would be kicked out for it. Looking like this good, people would kick us out for sure. I want to go to West Hollywood like this because I really think something would happen to me.
I want to get on a plane right now and coming out with you in LA. Oh my God. This has been so crazy.
Lovely day for an exorcism, isn't it, Father?
Oh my God. And I'm feeling so attached to you right now because we did that premium episode
I
and
know,
it's like fresh on my mind.
I wanted to do it because I was like, Stu, just research this. I did the whole concept was for you because I was like, you just researched it. I know you've been looking at this scary ass face, so I want to resurrect it.
You look incredible. Do you know what's so funny is my mom said you ought to go as Reagan, and I was like, I feel like that's just too ambitious for me.
It wasn't okay. Honestly, what's crazy is most of the makeup I already had, I used. Like, this is the same foundation from Longlegs, the same contacts from Interview with a Vampire. Like, I just glued down the brows. The wig that I got was like a lucky shot because it's fucking spot on.
Yeah,
this is literally Reagan's hair.
Spot on. Wait, tell me about the teeth.
That's why I can't drink anything. So I have 2 layers of tooth paint. One that stained them all yellow. And then I have one that stained the perimeters like black. And you have to let it dry because it goes away so quick. If you drink anything or brush them, it goes away instantly. So I'm standing here with a dry mouth. Like,
you have got to be parched.
Baby, I haven't had my morning coffee. This is a lot to not have a morning coffee on. This is a lot.
You're also kind of reminding me of me in like middle school in a weird way.
Yeah, I don't know if you like me. Sometimes I think you might hate me.
Oh my God.
Can I get into this wig, please? I'm not over
yes,
that. I'm not going to let you sidestep
I know you're not
this
over
wig.
this wig. First of all,
where did you get it? One.
I got this off of it's a woman on Etsy. Her name is Mia, but this is why I decided to go all out. So I started watching Bride of Frankenstein. I was like, I've never seen Bride of Frankenstein. And then I got really into like the actress that played her and like started looking at pictures. And then I started seeing these colorized photos because it's black and white. But the actress actually had auburn hair. So the wig was auburn.
Oh,
and I found this woman on Etsy. This is like true to the actress.
This is historically accurate.
Is like historically accurate, which is, and I was just like, you know what? I'll have it for the rest of my life. Like I can play. Getting a good wig is so fun.
Wig. It's an amazing. Yeah. And it looks really good, Stu.
It's really tall.
I mean, even just like the lace that's, I mean, I know that we're on like 4 pixels here, but the lace that's laid looks good.
The lace is good.
This is the shake and go that I sprayed with Pam to wet the bangs.
Oh my God. You know what I'm going to do? This will be Sisterhood of the Traveling Wig because you need to wear this at some point.
Absolutely. We should trade costumes next year.
Oh my God. Please. Oh,
Mama, creepers. This is welcome to the finale, everybody. Welcome to the Halloween finale. This is the special episode. We have done back-to-back costumes, I think, in total this year between the show and in my own life and going out. I've done like 7 costumes so far.
Yeah, you've been killing it on the weekends too. The hustle doesn't stop.
On the weekends, I'm getting a little lazy. I'm just doing makeup jobs and a jacket. That's about it.
Yeah.
It's on my lip.
Oh my God. It just pulls out a tooth.
Like, there's so many gross things on me right now.
Oh my God.
Jesus, creepers. I hope it was all visual.
I hope it was all worth it, creepers. Oh my God.
Oh my God. It's gel blood. That's what it is. It's gel blood because for the wounds, you can't do normal fake blood. It has to be gel so it stays in place, I learned.
Yeah. Oh my God.
I'm learning makeup artistry. It's 101.
I mean, we're becoming full on, like, we need to start a YouTube channel for you.
I thought about doing that on my YouTube channel. I was like, should I start doing like just like horror makeup tutorials and just see if I could just like try it, like watch a video and just try it. But the Reagan one again, I think was close to Lisa Rinna, where I'm like, maybe it's just the canvas.
The fact that you have been Lisa, like Princess Diary style, if we were like, take this and turn it into this. I can't believe that's you right now. Like, my mind is blown. It's so good.
Your mother sucks cocks in hell. Sorry for listening with your kids. It is labeled as unedited. I'm sorry.
Oh, God. I'm like, how am I even going to like tell a case today? My God.
We've done some trying cases where we have truly tried to power through while looking at these visuals, and we should be able to do it. I also have hand makeup on. It's faded now, but I wanted it to match. I did like makeup all down the chest.
Oh my God.
There's only 2 types of people in the world. The ones that entertain and the ones that observe.
That's amazing. Oh my God.
Can I see the full gown? Can you stand up, or is that too
Yeah.
much effort? I just want to see the full
Let's
gown
see.
because
Hold
you
on.
look so beautiful, Stu.
Oh my God. Stop.
You really do. This
I'm
like there's
having
something about this classic kind of vintage look. Also, your brows like that, like straight brows on you,
well,
really good.
I thought of you too. You were in my head because I was like, shh,
You did come to my
have
mind.
a glue stick. You did come to my mind. You did come to my magic mind.
Hell yeah!
I thought of you because I didn't have a glue stick, and I was like, "How the f- am I gonna get?" Because I have bushy brows, and in the movie, very like 1930s, she's got very thin eyebrows, but they go, and I was like, "Well, shoot." So I just concealed the crap out of them.
No, that works too. When I did Rinna, I didn't cover up my brows, but she also has thinner brows, and I just used a
Yeah.
white eyeliner pencil and I blocked out most of the hair.
Yeah, that's what I started
Yeah.
doing because the concealer wasn't working, and I was like, "Shit." So-
Wait, hold on. Let me see how my brows are. These
Oh
are cut.
my-
These are glued down, covered.
Oh my God. I feel like for our Halloween episode, we could just talk about costumery.
I'm just saying,
makeup
like,
artistry.
I know everybody's like, get to the story, and I'm like, baby, do you think that we're gonna jump on and ignore what's going on here?
Yeah, I'm like, we got to get to the video. You got to hop on Spotify or YouTube. Check this out.
Oh, that's true. For anybody who missed it in the last episode or skipped the last episode, if you have been listening to these episodes and you don't realize there's a video component, go check it out on Spotify, or we're going to be uploading them on YouTube so you can actually see the real-time costume reveals, because this is the last one.
I know. And I just can't wait for us to do. We've been toying with some ideas for how we can do this next year. I'm like, how is it 365 days away now?
Halloween, October did fly by though. The whole month did kind of fly by.
Yeah.
We're
Well,
having fun.
I will say the case that we're getting into today is it matches the horror of what we're looking at right now.
I don't know what the hell you're talking about. I'm a Maybelline girl, baby. This foundation is Maybelline. This lip is Wet n Wild.
Oh my God. Incredible. But the case, I remember I was texting you. I'm like, how do I get us to the case? I'm like,
there's so much that's going on that's absurd right now.
Baby, I have a chemistry lab behind me.
I have to go to the bank later today.
That's what I'm saying. I'm like, how do I navigate the world after this?
I think you got to walk out just like that. I think people will stop you dead on the street and be like, I'm sorry, gorgeous.
Too.
Who are you?
Oh, stop.
Who are you?
I'm like, where's my Frankenstein? Well, creepers, welcome back.
I'm like,
let me get that off the screen. Oh my God. When you laugh and get close to the camera, it's even scarier. Oh God. I'm just gonna die.
I did listen to a did you watch this video when you were doing research for the Exorcist episode? I'll let you jump into the case in a sec.
Yeah.
About, I think her name was Mercedes, right? The woman who actually voiced Reagan.
Yes.
When she's possessed. So interesting, her backstory. Like how she like got the job and like everything she did to prep for it. I was like doing a real deep dive on this because I'm like, who is that person? She was like a recovering alcoholic who had chronic bronchitis, whatever that means, who, when she got the role, she retook up smoking, retook up drinking, and was swallowing raw eggs and insisted she was strapped to a chair to get the vocal performance when they did ADR to like fill in the vocals. Because when they shot it, it was all just Linda Blair's actual 12-year-old voice.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, I'm the devil.
Yeah.
And that's me.
I don't think I saw that. I watched her in a documentary talking about like losing her son. But I didn't see her backstory.
No. She was only talking about The Exorcist in the interview I saw, and she goes into the voice in the interview. She goes, she's a type, and she's like, what did she say? She was like, I believe that it's all really in us, that kind of fury and anger. Like she just goes straight into it, and I was like,
you reacting like that in that costume. Darling,
if you want to be posh, you've got to be posh.
Oh, darling.
Money can't buy you class.
It's true. I feel very countess in this getup right now too.
Luann, first of all, Luann is stealing this, and she's going to do it
1,000%
tomorrow night.
She basically had this wig, but in Diana Ross.
I know, which I just saw the other day. Came back into my purview, and I was like, "That really happened." I didn't imagine that.
Oh my god!
Was that the same year that Dorinda was Lady Gaga?
I think the bubble costume where she was like Andy Samberg's.
Andy Samberg's. SLL.
SLN. She looked great, and then all the bubbles started coming off, and I was like, well, she tried.
It's the thought that counts, the effort.
Exactly. Well, baby, I guess I should launch us into the case. I think I told you that this one, I think I told you the name of what this case is called. It's the Hi-Fi Murders.
You mentioned it, but I don't know what the Hi-Fi Murders are, because you talked about another one, which I was like, oh, I've covered that on the Sinister, so I'm happy you told me.
Yeah.
But I don't know what the Hi-Fi Murders are.
I really debated even covering it because it is very dark subject matter. But it essentially, hi-fi in this case means like lo-fi, hi-fi, like stereo equipment. So it actually took place. It reminded me a little bit of the yogurt shop murders, but it took place in a retail store. Mm-hmm.
Interesting. So was Hi-Fi the name of a store?
It was called the Hi-Fi Shop.
The Hi-Fi Shop was.
Yes. Okay. And today's case is obviously supposed to be near Salt Lake City for our tour, which is coming up. But I decided to choose this, which is about 45 minutes outside of Salt Lake, because there was something about it that just like kept me coming back to it. And I kind of tried to shake it off. I was like, I just need to cover like something else that's closer to Salt Lake. But when I found this case, something about it just like really stuck with me. So anyways, that's sort of like a backstory to it. And I will just say, like, I say it at the top of the case, but take care of yourselves because the subject matter is very dark. So just going into it, even though we're in, these costumes and silly garb, I think it's important that we just touch on that right before we launch into a case.
Completely.
So what'd you say?
Completely.
I thought you said really.
No.
Like Reagan.
Stop.
Really?
This is like a resurrection of my when I was a kid, and I said, what does it do to a metronome? And I got punished because the teacher thought I was saying something else. Do you remember that story?
God, stop. Wait, did we talk about that on After Dark?
I think we did. We talked about it on After Dark.
We've been talking a lot about teachers and getting reprimanded recently on After Dark.
We did. Whatever episode we just did, which will come out, I don't know, in 2026. It's so funny. But when you said tour, I also smiled and forgot that I had this in my teeth. So I was like,
one tooth falls out.
Please go on.
Please God. Well, let me go ahead and launch us into today's case. The story I'm about to tell you and the creepers, like I just said, it's truly horrific. And I seriously want to caution our listeners about its subject matter. It's senseless. It involves torture and assault, and to many is considered Utah's most horrendous true crime case, probably only second to some of the crimes committed by Ted Bundy that you covered last week. Like I told you, I wrestled with covering this case. It was tough for me to even muscle through some of the research. I tried to convince myself to look at other cases, talk to you about Susan Powell, but something about what happened the evening this horrific crime took place in Ogden, Utah, affected me so deeply, and for multiple reasons. First, it's hard not to visualize the scene in your head because we have survivors, thankfully, that made it out alive and were able to testify about what transpired. Second, there is a familial element to this case. Parents doing the right thing, coming to check on their children, and finding themselves in a diabolical situation right alongside of their own child. And that really broke my heart, of course. And finally, the torture and senselessness that I touched on earlier. There was a threshold that these criminals crossed where what started as a robbery turned into an opportunity to inflict pain on innocent people, take some of their lives, and for those that were able to survive, deeply psychologically and physically affect them for the rest of their lives. This case also has a profound legacy in the true crime world, and Utah specifically. It was the first instance in the state where lethal injection would be used, and FBI, yes, and FBI trainees are actually taught about this case when they train at Quantico in order to better understand the minds of the perpetrators' behaviors, including premeditated sadism, psychological manipulation, and a willingness to use excessive violence. But most importantly, I want to cover this case in a similar way to how I did the Night Stalker, to remember those victims, 3 of whom were absolutely in the wrong place at the wrong time, and to acknowledge that they did not die in vain, despite the hell that they went through in their last minutes on Earth. And it's weird because last week, I know that you and I had a conversation about the death penalty and some of the fanfare surrounding Ted Bundy's execution day.
Mm-hmm.
And what I will say about this case is that it made me seriously question my own feelings on the death penalty, because after studying it, it is hard to imagine justice being sought for these victims and their families without the death penalty being involved in some way. Because what these criminals did is so foul and so without remorse, it just can only be described as an act of pure terror. So we are going to cover what is now known as the Hi-Fi murders. But first, I'm like, I should take a shot of the Magic Mind, honestly, because I almost just had a Reagan voice.
I was about
I was like,
I was about to say, I was like, that's a really, really in-depth and heavy top line. And then to jump into Magic Mind, I was like, sure.
Jump into Magic Mind, honestly, because my throat, Reagan's voice literally did come into the fold. She was like, and it's happening. You will cover today's case with my voice.
It's just something about the visual that doing it on camera. Have we ever taken a shot of Magic Mind on camera?
I think I did last time.
You might have, yeah, actually. I don't know if I have. I would do one now, but as you can see, I have things to preserve.
I know. Well, I did tell you that I got the sleep shots, right? For
you finally got them?
Is this a sleep shot?
Yeah.
Just halfway through.
That would be incredible. Incredible. Yeah, you got the sleep shot. Have you tried them yet?
I did. The flavor is very interesting. Like, I feel like it's like spa water almost.
Kind of. I think it definitely reminded me of like lavender for some reason when I was
When I
was drinking it. Yeah, it's very different though from the regular shots, from like the focus shots.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I definitely need it because it'll put me in a good little flow state right now. Because I know I keep saying it's heavy, but I feel like as long as I kind of just approach it like with a cool, calm demeanor, which Magic Mind helps me do, then it's just like easier to get through cases like that.
I agree. I usually take them now in the mornings. I used to take them like sometime in like the afternoon as like a pick me up around that like 3 p.m. slowdown.
Yeah.
But I now take them in the mornings because I'm running so much in the mornings and doing so much that it's quick, it's easy. I do it right before my walks. And then by the time I come back, I'm in the right kind of state of mind where I want to get a lot of work done.
Yeah. Do you take them on your walks? Like, do you like take a little shot with you?
Not usually, because I usually just want to like take the shot and toss it out while I'm in the house, and then I'll go on my walk.
Yeah. I was just thinking that could be nice. Like if you get a little parch, you get a little Magic Mind.
Just pour it all over my face.
No,
but we are so excited for this entire month. This has been an amazing month of partnering with Magic Mind because they are sponsoring this podcast so that everybody who is listening for this month and possibly this month only is going to get 20% off, either a single time purchase or, again, if you guys want to take the plunge with us and you want to be on the subscription train for Magic Mind and you want to feel the full benefits of taking that day after day, week after week. So if you check the description, you are going to see a link to our affiliate link, which is going to be associated with the code CreepTime20. That will give you 20% off. We want you to get it. We want you to get a discount, as does Magic Mind. And we want to hear how you guys love it.
Yeah. And I know some creepers are loving it.
They are. So far, I mean, I've seen a lot of them post and a lot of them send messages and they're like, just got my subscription like order. Like, I'm going to be a customer for a minute.
Yes.
Like,
and
I'm going to be a subscriber for a while.
Yes. Be a subscriber for a while because it really does work the longer you take it sustained taking it. I've noticed that at least.
I agree. It feels cumulative. Like the first like few weeks, you're just kind of getting your bearings and figuring out like, okay, what time of day do I take this? How does it make me feel? But now that I'm in like a consistent routine with it, it really does genuinely make a difference to my personal performance when I'm doing work.
Absolutely. And every time you take it, you can think of the two of us going, "'Tis tradition."
'Tis tradition, baby. That's true. When you were here, I just kept feeding them to you. Like everywhere you went, it was like a Secret Santa thing where I was like, look what's behind the mantle. It's a little
one.
magic man. It's a little
Name
Name
him, baby. Name the magic man.
This is the new addition to the Housewives cast, Reagan. It's an amazing SNL skit.
She's just a friend.
She's the Alison Dubois of like season 14 or whatever we're going into.
Yes. Oh my God.
He will never emotionally fulfill you. Know that. Someday we'll do a whole Housewives themed like costume series. That would be amazing. Absolutely. The premiere's coming up. Maybe we'll do it for the premiere.
Oh, that would be fantastic.
I'm looking for an excuse to be Sutton.
I'm looking for an excuse for you to be Sutton. Know that. Well, let me just also say, I almost skipped the intro. Welcome back, creepers. And if you are new to CreepTime, the podcast, we're so happy to have you. What an episode if you were joining us for our Halloween finale. You ought to go back and watch the other costume episodes because they are equally as unhinged.
I was going to say, I was like, I wonder if you watch them in order, if you can see us getting closer and closer to falling apart mentally by the end of it.
I believe so. Yeah, I believe so. The mental institution is knocking on our doors today for a check-in, but we're so happy to have you. If you are new, you should follow us on Apple, on Spotify. Make sure you hit that bell notification so you always get an alert when we drop a new episode. And if you like this episode or any others, once you give it a listen, please give us a review on Apple Podcasts. It is so helpful in terms of growing our show and getting these stories out to more people. And also leave us some comments on Spotify. We love seeing those roll in and get some creeper interaction and poll interaction. It's very fun.
You can also leave us a 5-star review on Spotify as well.
Oh, yes. Oh, leave us a review on Spotify as well. And go to creeptime.com and check out our tour dates. If you don't know, baby, run them through the colors. What are the cities in order?
Baby, we have all of the Western dates for tour that are currently available. We are going to be starting in Los Angeles on March 1st, 2025, going up to Sacramento, then Portland, Seattle. Then we're going to Salt Lake, which is the case that we're covering today, which we are doing in succession of the dates that we have booked, and then Denver, Phoenix, and we are finally closing out the Western dates in the haunted Chemo Theater in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So please make sure to go to creeptime.com, get your tickets ahead of time while the good seats are still available. All the seats are good, baby, I can assure you. But
that's right.
If you want to come with your group, make sure you lock that in early.
Yes. Oh, I cannot wait for that Chemo Theater show.
Promo Reagan is a different character that I just unlocked within my brain.
Her head is like, we got Seattle, we got Portland, we got Albuquerque, and we got the haunted Chemo Theater. Oh, man. Okay. Well, baby. Oh, Lord. I'm like settled. Okay. We're going to launch into the hi-fi murders. First, I'm going to drop you a link like we normally do to our Canva and Creepers. These pictures will be up on Reddit if you want to follow along when the case comes out. Let me get this link to you, baby.
Can I just ask, what was the name of the city again that you mentioned? Because you said it was about 40 minutes outside of Salt Lake, right?
Yes, it's Ogden, Utah.
Ogden. I remember when you said it hit my ear strange. I don't think I'd ever heard of it.
I hadn't ever heard of it either. Some of the case actually does take place, like certain autopsies are done down in Salt Lake, and there are certain people involved in the case that are from the Salt Lake area. But yeah, this takes place about 45 minutes drive up north of Salt Lake City proper.
Oh, it's north. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. I just got it. Oh, and we're in 1974.
Yes, we are in 1974. We're still in the 70s. That's carrying over from, I guess, Ted Bundy. When did that start? In the 60s? And then
they think it might have started in 69. Then the majority of it kind of like really started on paper, I guess, in 1974. Strange. Yeah. Our last three cases, I guess, that we've talked about are 1974 because I just did the Lindley Street poltergeist on the Sinister, which also started November 24th, 1974.
And The Exorcist was 1974 or 73.
73.
Yes.
Maybe it released in 74. Who knows?
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting.
The international
we're in our
release
70s.
was 74.
Yeah.
Bizarre, huh? Weird coincidence.
So I'm going to break down what happened the evening of April 22nd, 1974. On this day, the Hi-Fi Shop, which there's a couple of pictures of on that first page, which was a stereo equipment shop located at 2323 Washington Boulevard in Ogden, Utah, a small town about 45 minutes north of Salt Lake City, was being closed up by its manager, Stanley Walker, and another employee, Michelle Ansley. The Hi-Fi Shop sold turntables, stereo speakers, carried records, and Stanley, who everybody called Stan, was 20 years old, and Michelle was only 18. Michelle was actually only in her second week of working at the hi-fi shop.
Oh, God.
Michelle was also engaged to be married at this time and was covering for a fellow coworker. She wasn't even originally supposed to work this shift. As she and Stan were getting ready to close the shop, two men entered the store. The two employees didn't know this at the time, but there was at least one other person involved as well, though investigators believe that there were at least three other accomplices.
Really?
What? Yeah. So in total, they think that 6 people were involved in executing this whole plan, but they were only able to ever get 3 of them. Now, what seemed like a robbery at first quickly turned into something more complex and horrific. These 2 men, whose names were Dale Pierre and William Andrews, they're going to be, I believe, on the second page, but you can really get a clearer picture of them on the third. Dale Pierre and William Andrews quickly took the 2 employees hostage, dragging them down to the basement of the shop where they were bound with electrical cords from the stereo equipment that was already inside. They had 25 caliber and 38 caliber handguns on them, which were used to intimidate the victims and force them into the basement. The basement would later be described by one of the crime scene technicians on the case, a man named George Throckmorton, as, quote, a dark room with one light bulb in the middle. Truly the scene of a horror movie. Now, this is where it gets really tragic. A 16-year-old by the name of Courtney Nesbitt had been running an errand for his family. He was picking up photos from the photo shop next door to the hi-fi shop, and he knew Stan Walker and some of the other employees that worked there. In the past, they had allowed him to park in their parking lot for free while he'd go and he'd pick up his developed photos. And on this night, he made it a point to go over to the hi-fi shop in order to thank Stan Walker for letting him park there and to just probably say hi and catch up. It was an earnest and sweet gesture, but it unfortunately put him in the center of the hostage situation that was currently taking place within the shop. Now, if you can imagine this, they've taken Michelle and Stan probably minutes before this and bound them in the basement of the shop and are robbing the store, loading up thousands of dollars worth of equipment and taking it out to this blue Chevy van where their accomplice, a man we'd come to know by the name of Keith Roberts, was playing lookout, and he was going to basically act as their getaway driver.
God, that was going to be my initial question. I assumed it was some kind of like a heist to like steal the equipment of the shop and maybe the money, but I wasn't quite sure like if the plan was always to just detain people or if the plan was always going to lead to whatever is going to happen here, which I'm going to presume is murder.
Yes. Well, and that's a question that has sort of plagued this case for a long time, is how much of this was premeditated. Was it just to get the equipment at first, or were these guys did they have more evil on the brain? And the belief that I have by the end of this was yes. I don't think that they originally... I believe that they went in with the intent of causing more harm than just, and causing a lot of pain. And I think, I do think the torture element kind of went to a level that they might not have anticipated, but I do believe that they had a motivation to cause significant physical and mental harm on whoever was going to stand in their way.
I know we're getting ahead, but who do you think among these men who came in was the ringleader of the group? Dale Pierre.
Okay. And I think that's probably widely believed. I think I actually read a quote somewhere, but it was basically that William Andrews was his right-hand man. And even when William Andrews, this isn't in my research, but I thought it was so interesting. When I watched this interview of him on death row, Dale was actually executed before William Andrews. And William Andrews was kind of a petty criminal. He had been involved in other cases, and they were trying to close some of them out before his execution date. And one of the detectives basically said to him, you know, you're going to be executed in 3 days. Why don't you just fess up to all these details that we want about the hi-fi shop? And he said something along the lines of, I'm too scared of Dale Pierre. And they were like, he's dead. There's nothing to be scared of. So William Andrews was even that intimidated by him, even after his own death, that he, I guess, was basically would do whatever Dale said. He was definitely the right-hand man.
I can almost get the sense. I'm imagining that might be the dynamic where there is one sort of ringleader in a scenario like this who has a truly
Hmm.
sadistic intent when they're going into
Yes.
these things, and then they use the power that they have over their henchmen to kind of coax everybody else into exacerbating this
Hmm.
plot to kill or to torture. This
Yes.
makes
And
total sense to me.
totally. And what I read about him too is he was just a very intimidating person, very aggressive, as you can probably imagine. But and surprisingly though, he wasn't like some huge guy. He was pretty stocky, but he wasn't like super tall. I actually think he was maybe even like 5'5" or something. But um he
Well,
just had
sometimes
that sort
people
of
who have a bit of a complex with that. I mean, sometimes they overcompensate in ways with their personality where they have to assert dominance over the room or power over a
yeah.
group of people or men.
He was definitely one of those, kind of like a Napoleon complex, I guess you could say.
Hmm.
Now, like I said earlier, they believe there were others helping besides Keith, just even due to the sheer size and weight of all of the equipment they took. But unfortunately, those three were never caught. So, anyway, 16-year-old Courtney walks in and is immediately ambushed by Pierre and Andrews and taken hostage as well. He is thrown and bound onto the basement floor, though what I saw reported was that Courtney was bound with wire instead of electrical cord. Now, I do want to call out that these accounts of what happened to Michelle and Stan are from what investigators could deduce based on the crime scene once they arrived and information provided by the perpetrators after the arrest.
Hmm.
Courtney, though a survivor himself, suffered so greatly after the events, and I'll obviously go into more detail about that in a bit, but he was unable to testify at trial. Uh, However,
Really,
everything,
due
yeah,
to like
physical harm,
physical
mostly
harm.
brain damage that occurred.
Really.
Hmm. So even though he did survive, investigators don't really consider anything factual information about like Michelle, Stan, and Courtney's being taken hostage until the next victim comes in because he also survived. And that surviving victim was Stan Walker's father. His name was Orrin. He was 43 years old. And at the time, he was really worried that his son hadn't come home yet. Stan also was the store manager, but normally he would be home by around like 7 after the shop closed.
Hmm.
So right around 7, Orrin made his way down to the shop to try and figure out where his son was. And Orrin was met with the same tragic fate. Now, all of the victims were brave and suffered so much, but I just want you to pay attention to Orrin specifically because this man has a mental constitution like I've never seen before. And I'll go more in depth on that, but on what he was able to withstand. But Orrin, like all the others, was bound with cord and wire and taken down to the basement. Now, can you imagine the horror of a father being taken down to some narrow wooden stairs, this drafty basement, and what he finds his son bound on the ground and in so much fear?
Any of the circumstances unimaginable. I just want to clarify. So it
Yeah.
is the son as well as this new shop worker who was only there for 2 weeks, wasn't even supposed to be
Hmm.
there on her shift, and then Courtney had come in, the kid who was going to come in to say thank you
Yes.
to Stan.
Hmm.
Stan's not the shop owner though; he's just like a manager
He's
there.
just a manager.
He's just
Hmm.
a manager, and his father comes in. So it's 4 people total who are now captive in the
Yes.
basement.
Yes. Right now it's 4 people.
Okay.
Yeah. So just the idea of him having to like walk down and wondering where his son was. And from what I read, the way that they ambushed was super quick. And it was like, get down, get it, like with the handguns. And they would just drag them down, like shove them down into those stairs. Typically, Dale was the one that would ambush, and then Williams was at the bottom, or
Hmm.
William was at the bottom to like take them and like throw them down and bind them. But I can't imagine the scene of mentally that happening so fast, and then what I look down and see is my own son bound
I,
up. It
I
just
probably impossible to really register what was going on, like what they were experiencing. And
yeah.
I just wonder in those scenarios if like the default is always to just comply as much as possible, to assume like if I just do what I'm told, I'm going to get out of this
Hmm.
scot free. I'm going to be let go after they take whatever they're going to take, because nobody assumes in a robbery plot like this that maybe such egregious and horrific torture would take place.
Yeah. From what I read, that's how they played it. Especially the father, Orrin, when he got pushed down to the ground. This was so sad, but I saw this interview with one of the detectives and he was recounting Orrin's, testimony of what happened that night. And he said, when I was laying down next to my son, all I kept saying was just like, hang on, we're going to be okay. Like he was the one that was keeping everybody really calm. So tragically, he wasn't the only parent that ended up suffering like this. So Courtney's mother, a woman named Carol Naisbitt, she was 52 years old. Same thing. She was wondering where her son was. And she reportedly came down to the shop closer to 9 p.m. And when she arrived, she was also quickly taken hostage, bound, and thrown to the basement floor with the other four.
Oh my God.
But before she arrived, torturous acts, mental and physical, had begun to transpire beyond being tied up and kidnapped. Creepers, just going to warn you again, the next part of the story involves the torture inflicted on these 5 innocent people, and it does get quite graphic. So if you need to pause or just take the story in increments, totally understand and take care of yourselves. I'm going to read the direct language from the court briefing of the state of Utah versus William Andrews because it describes in detail the testimony Orrin Walker gave about the events from that evening. Now,
and just to be clear before you go into it, so William Andrews was the only one who was perpetuating the torture in this moment while they're in the basement?
No, essentially what they're doing is, Dale and Williams are the ones that are being the ones either smacking them or tying them up or telling them to shut up, but they're basically running back and forth, taking stereo equipment up to the van. So it's kind of like whoever.
Right, because I had imagined one like on the upstairs, one on the downstairs, and I thought Williams was the one on the downstairs. So it sounds like they're both downstairs with all 4 who are tied up.
Yes, at some point, I think the majority of the evening, they were both downstairs but I think there were certain moments where either Williams or Dale would run up the stairs, grab things, throw them in, then kind of like, especially Dale, I think would run back and forth to sort of orchestrate with the other people involved, like take
and
this,
one would
take
stay
this,
with
we
the
want
victims
this.
and sort of keep watch
Yes.
over the hostages.
Yes. Yes. So I'm going to read from the briefing that was the state of Utah versus William Andrews. And from what I could deduce, the section details what it was like when Orrin arrived and afterwards and before the 5th and final victim, Carol Naisbitt, arrived. So from what I could figure out, I don't think she was there yet from this briefing. Orrin stated that Pierre was at the top. This will kind of answer your question. Stated that Pierre was at the top of the stairs, which led to the basement of the hi-fi shop, and was holding a small caliber automatic pistol. And Andrews was at the bottom of those stairs holding a short nose revolver. Andrews aimed his gun at Orrin. He was forced to come down the stairs into the basement. He then saw Courtney Naisbitt, Michelle Ansley, and his own son, Stanley Walker, tied up. He said, quote, "The young people pleaded with Andrews and Pierre. I remember hearing Michelle say, 'I'm just 19. I don't want to die.' Courtney said, 'I'm young. Please. I don't want to die.'" Now, the next part of the case is what a lot of people remember about it because it truly is one of the most disturbing aspects. But it was after this that Andrews and Pierre then poured Drano into a plastic cup and gave it to Orrin Walker and ordered him to, quote, "administer it to the young people." So this meant that Orrin was going to have to force his own son to drink Drano. But,
oh my God.
Yeah. But Orrin refused. And when he did that, they tied him up and they threw him to the ground. Now, sometime shortly after this is when Mrs. Carol Naisbitt, Courtney's mom, arrived at the shop. Same thing happened to her. She was ambushed as she started to come down the stairs. She's bound, thrown to the basement floor. Now, with all 5 on the ground, Dale Pierre and William Andrews decided that they were going to try the Drano torture again. They propped each of the victims up and began to force them to drink the Drano one by one. Now, from what I could gather from the briefing, they didn't tell the victims that it was Drano. In fact, Michelle asked, and according to the document, Andrews claimed that he told her it was, quote, vodka mixed with a German drug that would essentially put them to sleep and make them forget what was happening.
Well, I was going to ask, I mean, if the perpetrators knew it was Drano, so were they administering that to kill them? Like, what was the actual intent behind why they were doing it?
Yeah, I'll get to that. But yes, the intent was to kill.
Okay.
But it didn't work. But yes, the intent was to kill. So Andrews would be the one to, again, he's kind of being the right-hand man. He was the one that would pour it into the cup, and then he would hand it to Pierre, and then Pierre was the one that really like got off by making them drink it, and he was the one that would force them to drink. Now, as you can imagine, the effects of this started to take place. The victims started to vomit, their mouths and their throats were burning, and from what I read, Pierre and Andrews thought that this would kill them instantly. And we'll touch on this too when we review the trial later, but some of the evidence used against them in court cited that Dale Pierre had seen a movie called Magnum Force. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. But it's like an old Clint Eastwood action movie. And that was where he had gotten this idea, because in the movie, that woman, there's a woman, I think she plays a prostitute actually, but she's forced to take Drano and she dies instantly. And of course, that was not turning out to be the case here. The victims were, of course, in tremendous pain, but they were not dying, or certainly weren't dying instantly like the movie had shown. Now, Orrin Walker was also one of the last ones to be given the Drano, which at this point, he's watching them all drink it in the line.
I was going to say, so he's made to administer and then is forced to take it himself.
No, so he actually wasn't. At this point, he refused. He said, I'm not doing that, because he was going to have to force his own kid to drink it. And they were like, well, screw you, threw him down and bound
when
him.
you said that, the darkness of that settled in for a second, where I was like imagining him having, like, under gunpoint, having to, I couldn't even like conceive of that. That's insane.
I know. But doesn't it speak so much though to his, I just think his bravery, Orrin's in particular, just be like, I'm not doing that. Like, kill me. I'd rather die than you make me do that to my own kid, is just crazy. I mean, it's amazing to me. So now Orrin was one of the last ones to be given the Drano. And at this point, he was, looking at everybody and noticing the way that they were reacting. And he thought that's definitely not vodka and a drug. So when he was given the substance, he did something remarkable, and he basically held it in his mouth as long as he could and just like writhed and acted like he was experiencing all the same things. And then when Pierre was had turned his head to kind of look at Carol Naisbitt to do the next one, he turned over and quickly let it like dribble out of his mouth and onto his collar. Now, it was at this point that things took a turn for the worst. The fact that none of the victims had died yet was not what Pierre and Andrews had anticipated. It was at this point that I believe Pierre in particular decided that they needed to finish what they had started. And Pierre had said some things from the briefing I read. Pierre basically walked over to Andrews, whispered some things in his ear, and then after that, they began to fire shots into the back of the victims' heads. I'm just going to pause right there, just like check on you and see how you're doing. And I know this is very heavy.
God, that's so horrific to imagine. I was almost imagining, I was like, if people were going to put up a fight, or people were going to, refuse, or they weren't going to die instantly from drinking Drano or whatever they were making them do, people would just start to go berserk, and then everybody would end up getting shot. I kind of thought that was where this was going.
Yeah. I mean, I think what irks me the most and what makes it feel so horrific and so much like, I know I say sometimes I see things in like a cinematic way when you're telling me cases, but in my mind, thinking about these people being shoved into this like drafty small basement and having all this go down is what is truly like the thing of nightmares to me.
I just, it's so senseless. I can't really understand. I understand that maybe they got the idea from a movie, but to actually act on it, instead of just shooting them, it doesn't make sense to me why they did this.
Yeah. And still, I have to say, even after all the research I've done, and we'll talk about it at the end, I still don't understand. And Dale Pierre mentions a little bit why he felt the need to do this, but does not go into depth. Like, there's not some huge backstory like we normally see where they suffered tremendously as children, and maybe it's because he just was pretty tight-lipped. He didn't really care to share.
I was going to say, how much do we actually know of the backstory? Because some of them they conceal quite a bit.
Yeah, we don't know much, and I think there is some of it that we'll touch on, but I think what's really frustrating too about this case is that he got a little bit of a rise out of being tight-lipped, because he was like, well, I'm going to die anyways. Like, I don't really care to share anything with you. So
it's also the attention that people need something from him.
Yes. So first Pierre shot Mrs. Carol Naisbitt, uh, who was the 52-year-old mom.
Courtney's mom,
Then,
right?
yes, Courtney's mom. Then he shot Courtney. Then at Orrin Walker, which missed him and hit the floor. Pierre then shot Orrin's son Stanley in the back of the head. And after shooting those 4, Pierre then untied Michelle Ansley and took her into a back room of the basement where he assaulted her. When Pierre was finished with Michelle, he brought her back into the room with the others and he shot her as well. She died pretty much instantly. Now, at this point, Orrin, Courtney, and Mrs. Naisbitt, the one that he shot first, they were all miraculously still alive. And Orrin especially was continuing to fight back. This next quote I'm going to read is from the crime classification manual. And I know I mentioned it at the top of the episode. They study this case at when you go to FBI training at Quantico. And this is that manual, I guess, that they give to new agents. And I was able to find a little excerpt about this case from it online. But it reads, before he left, Pierre returned to Orrin Walker twice. Once he attempted to strangle him. I believe I read somewhere, but he attempted to strangle him with electrical cord from the one of the stereo systems again. And Orrin Walker expanded the muscles in his neck, basically like flexed so hard that it gave him enough room to breathe. And Pierre dropped his body back to the floor. The second time that Pierre attempted to kind of finish the job, this is very graphic, he found a ballpoint pen, inserted it into Orrin's ear, and essentially stomped on it until Orrin felt the tip poke through the inside of his throat. So that was his attempt to finish the job. This man was truly like something of the devil. He was just an absolute sadist. Now, when Pierre Andrews and their getaway driver Roberts had left, they had loaded up and stolen close to $70,000 worth in today's money of stereo equipment. And Detective Moore, in this interview that I watched, said that they deduced that Roberts was involved, both from eyewitnesses who saw him sort of pacing outside of the store back and forth while this was all going down.
Yeah, I was going to ask. I was like, was there
How did they know?
anybody who saw like what was going down? Like across
there were
the
a lot of
way?
eyewitnesses. Yeah, there were actually a lot
like,
of
when
people.
you see people like barreling in and out with like very large, I'm assuming some of it was very large in the 70s stereo equipment, like it's pretty obvious what's going down. I'm surprised the police didn't even get there earlier.
I know. I thought the same thing. I was like, how do they not catch this Keith Roberts guy? But I think part of it was that you'll see in that second page, I believe, or maybe it's the first, where you see the front of the hi-fi shop. Where they were doing all of this transporting of stuff was actually in the back of the shop, which was in a parking lot.
Oh, okay.
So people that were walking down that main road were not seeing what was happening inside, mostly because the shop was,
sense.
Yeah, it was closed, but all the hoopla was happening behind the store.
That makes way more sense. Yeah, I had kind of imagined this all happening right out through the front door, so this makes more sense.
Right, because isn't that how the yogurt shop murders happened? They were like right in the front, or like all the glass I remember being broken.
Essentially, yeah. I mean, I'm not going to misquote because I can't remember exactly what they think the method of escape was, because there was definitely an entrance and exit at the front, of course, and in the back room.
Yeah, I remember
but
that.
I do think I'm misremembering it, because either they didn't come in through the front or go out through the front door because it was locked, I think, which would mean they were like lingering in there by the time it was closing time. I got to go back and reinvestigate that case. But yeah, something very similar.
Yeah. I just remember about that case, something about that wasn't there like a little room in the back or something?
There was, yeah. I mean, there was a back room, and then I think there was a bathroom back there. There was a part of the back room that wasn't touched by the fire. I remember. Because one of the victims,
I remember the drawing.
Yeah, one of the victims she hadn't suffered burns like the other victims.
Right.
And she was the one who was found in that far back break room.
Yes, I remember that. Okay, so I will press on here. Let me see my place. Okay, yes. So there were eyewitnesses who saw Roberts, the getaway driver, but also Orrin remembered hearing. This kind of amazed me. I was like, how did he hear this all the way down in the basement? But he heard them loading things in and out and heard other feet. And specifically, he remembers hearing a car, which was the van, turning on and off, like the ignition turning on and off. And also that the back parking lot was gravel. And he remembered hearing the gravel rattling outside. So that also helped them nail down the final guy.
Mhm.
Now, as they were pulling out, and at this point, Pierre and Andrews have left. And as
So
they're
everybody's
pulling,
gone.
yes. And as they were pulling out, Courtney began moving, and Orrin saw him begin crawling towards the stairs in the darkness. And he said he only made it about a foot. He only made it to the foot of the stairs before he saw Courtney lapse into unconsciousness. So I know that this has been very like brutal, but I just wanted to like pause, give you a breather, and just ask you. I know you already kind of picked up on this before, but how premeditated you're feeling like this was.
I do feel like it was, I mean, it definitely was premeditated if he said that he had gotten the idea from a movie. My question was always about whether or not it was a group effort. And of course it was, because the group was involved in administering this. But
Mm-hmm.
I had a feeling from the get-go, from the beginning, that there was one ringleader who maybe had a really sadistic need or
Mm-hmm.
want to do this, and the rest were just kind of, again, like I said, henchmen who followed. And then it was a horrific circumstance of people who shouldn't have been in that building.
Yeah. And we'll get to it towards the end, but I think one of those people that was involved did not realize how sadistic and twisted Dale Pierre was going to take this whole thing. And he ended up,
Right, like maybe he had the idea but hadn't
Mhm.
really vocalized it to anybody, maybe other than Williams or like his right hand, to be
Yes.
like,
Yeah. I also think Williams kind of painted himself towards the end of his life as like, I didn't know. I didn't think it was going to be. I think he knew, because there's some things I'll touch on, but I think
mhm.
he was just as energized by this whole concept of carrying this out as much as Dale was. And
Or even
he,
of just appeasing Dale. I mean, if
yes,
that's the twisted dynamic between them, it's whatever Dale wants, as long as Dale's getting what he wants. That's what I
totally.
want.
Yeah. So I'm going to move on to the scene police arrived to find. So sometime at around 10:20 or 10:30, Orrin Walker's wife and youngest son showed up to the hi-fi shop after both Orrin and Stan had not come back for dinner. Now, I believe, like I told you, Pierre and Andrews had been entering and exiting through a back door that led to the parking lot.
Mhm.
And I guess they must have jammed the back door shut when they left or something, because when Orrin's youngest son and his mother arrived, they heard noises from the basement. They heard the victims in the basement, but
Mhm.
they had to break down the back door to get inside. So I was kind of surprised about that. I guess they did, as they were leaving, think to themselves, like, let's not lock up, but they've somehow barricaded the door. So, anyways, they were able to break in, and Orrin's wife called police right after. Now, three people are barely alive at this point, and two are dead. One of the detectives, when he arrived, a man named Don Moore, he gave an interview that I watched, and this was crazy. He did the interview in what is now the modern day basement of the old hi fi shop. He described in depth his first impression of the crime scene. He said what hit him first was, quote, the specific smell of death, blood, and chemicals. And as he entered, he saw the bodies of Michelle Ansley and Stan Walker, uh, but they were already pronounced dead. Orrin Walker, Courtney Nesbitt, and his mother were rushed immediately to St. Benedict's Hospital. But unfortunately, Mrs. Carol Nesbitt died within minutes of her hospital arrival,
Ugh.
which is just awful. Crime scene technicians spent over 18 hours processing the scene and collecting more evidence. Now, Courtney, who remember had been shot in the back of the head, was not expected to survive, but he somehow miraculously did. After 266 days in the hospital, he survived, but not without severe injuries that would plague him for the rest of his life. He was brain damaged, and the amnesia he began suffering as a result of his injuries prevented him from providing much recounting of facts to police. He later would be unable, or unadvised rather, to testify at the trial because of all of the brain damage.
That's so sad.
I know. I will say, just moment of levity here, but when I was reading a little bit more about Courtney and his recovery, I read that at his high school graduation, he did eventually graduate high school, that he was sort of an odd kid. He wasn't like super popular or anything, but the entire class, when he basically made it across, and at that point he was so brain damaged that he was just like trying to get his diploma. And when he did that, like the entire school erupted and like gave him a huge round of applause. And I was
Oh
just
my
like,
God.
oh my God. It's pretty, I mean, and then he did try to go to college. He really did try to make a life for himself, but he suffered tremendously for the rest of his life.
Of course. Like, as I can imagine, of course.
Yeah. Now, Warren, who, mind you, had open blisters all over his face from the Drano. I even read he had all these holes and burn marks through his collar and his
Just an
shirt.
aside, I was going to quickly ask if you knew anything about what happens to a body when Drano is ingested. Like, what physically is happening?
Blisters. Because it's like a caustic, acidic substance, so it'll just like start to dissolve whatever
I
is
imagine
there.
like it would dissolve like parts of the flesh like in your throat.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's exactly what was happening, just like burning, dissolving the flesh. But so he had marks like all the way down the side of his mouth and then holes through his shirt where it had been dribbling. Despite that, he gave an interview at the hospital while they were basically treating him. And he described both of his assailants as African-American men, one of which he believed he remembered having a Caribbean accent. And this we will come to know was Dale Pierre, who was originally, he was from Trinidad and Tobago. So that they were able to deduce who Dale was and subsequently identify William Andrews. Orrin also stated that he saw a blue van parked up against the back door when he arrived at the hi-fi shop to check on his son. Now, Ogden at the time had a population of about 64,000 people. So when news spread of this dreadful incident at the hi-fi shop, tips started coming into police left, right, and center. And just a couple of hours after local news outlets got wind of what had happened at the hi-fi shop, within 24 hours, investigators received a telephone tip from an anonymous caller. Detective Moore, in the interview I watched, believes that this caller was someone that was involved in the crime. Perhaps one of the other three men. Yes. And he said he was pretty sure this person didn't realize how intense the crime was going to be and didn't even know until they saw what was happening on the news. He thought that they were someone that was in the van helping to haul the equipment with Keith Roberts out of the parking lot. And he thought that this person called in because they had a guilty conscience. He could just tell over the phone. And the caller also knew a lot of information about the incident that others wouldn't know, people that were potentially involved. Now, I'm sure you and the creepers are wondering, who is Dale Pierre? Who is William Andrews? So both Pierre and Andrews were in the Air Force at the time, and they were stationed at the Hill Air Force Base, which is about 8 miles away from the hi-fi shop. The anonymous caller that tipped police was also in the Air Force. It was someone that claimed to know Dale Pierre, and another witness, fellow.
So they were able to identify who that person was eventually?
I didn't see a name, but they knew he was in the Air Force. I don't know what his exact name was, but I think that's also...
Yeah. How did they know he was in the Air Force? Was it based on... Could they track the call, or did he mention it?
I guess I would say... I mean, I'm just saying I didn't see who that guy's exact name was. I'm not saying that he didn't give his name. I just don't know what his name was for the research, but
got it.
He must have told them, I'm in the Air Force. I know Dale Pierre. He's on my base. There was another witness, another fellow airman. This guy's name, I do know. His name is George Platko, and he testified that William Andrews had said to him while they were hanging out on base, quote, "One of these days, I'm going to rob that hi-fi shop, and if anybody gets in the way, I'm going to kill them." And that was just months prior to the hi-fi murders. Which, isn't that insane to think about somebody saying that right to you and you just wondering the validity of that statement?
So strange. It's weird that you bring that up, because I was just thinking about something similar when people make very disturbing statements out loud, and how people socially, I think the instinct is often to like not take it seriously or assume that somebody is joking most of the time. I almost wondered if that's how, because he's not the only killer that I've seen do something like this, like outright admit to like what their plan is, but nobody on the outside ever thinks to take it seriously. They think it's just talk. Yeah.
I wonder if it's sort of like also kind of a macho, like, look at me kind of thing. Like, I'm going to do this thing, and if anybody gets in my way, they're not going to be able to stop me.
That's the thing. It's all like fanfare and just, it's machismo. It's just talk. There's
Yes.
nobody ever really believes that somebody has devised a plot to go into a store, rob it, hold hostages, and kill people.
Yeah. Now, on the 23rd of April, this is the next day, two young men, 11 and 12, had gone dumpster diving at the Hill Air Force Base, and they had found a purse and some identification. They ended up taking it home to their mom. And of course, news coverage of the case was all over the place, and the mother recognized the names and faces on the IDs.
That's
Officers,
insane.
I know,
That's
I know,
insane what you just told me.
I know.
What are the chances?
What are the
And
odds?
the next day too.
I mean, that is the one great thing about this case that we don't often see is everything was found out quickly. They were able to move fast. It just is awful that, of course, Michelle, Stan were their lives were taken within a matter of minutes, and then Carol unfortunately didn't make it, but they were able to find these guys quickly. Let's see. Yeah, so officers, after they figure out that those boys had found some ID, they go out to the base, they go to the dumpster, and they're able to recover additional items that belong to Mrs. Carol Naisbitt and Michelle Ansley. Now, here's where the case takes a very interesting turn. The dumpster was located in a parking lot right outside of Barracks 351. And the minute Detective Moore heard, they found it at Barracks 351, he was struck, he said, like a bolt of lightning, because when Dale Pierre had arrived at the Air Force Base in 1973, he became involved in an auto theft ring where he would essentially go and test new cars. Like he'd go to a lot, he'd say, I want to take this car for a test drive. While he was out, he would duplicate the keys, then take the car back to the lot, and then come back at night and steal the car. And from what I also read, he would like come back to the dealership the next day and be like, I want that car that I test drove. And they would say that, oh, we're so sorry, but the car got stolen. And he would like throw this huge fit at the dealership. That's kind of hearsay, but I did read that somewhere that he was kind of known for being
interesting cover up, actually. Huh.
Yeah. It's an odd thing to do. I mean, you really have to just, I guess, believe that nobody's going to suspect you.
It's almost like a personal exercise of one's capacity to lie and just sort of do it so blatantly.
Yeah. Like, and maybe, again, he kind of got excited by that. I don't know.
Did they talk about this in his trial? Like what they think might have been wrong with this person?
With him?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he said that he suffered from taking a lot of drugs and alcohol. He said he had a tough upbringing. He said, I remember there was some quote where he said, there were often moments where I just felt like I was filled with rage, and that he would act out that way. But they at least knew of him already. He was not some, great, wonderful stand-up citizen of the Air Force out there. I mean, he was
right. Like he wasn't a meteor when it came
crime.
to a crime. He had a record for sure.
Yes. So there was an Ogden police auto theft task force. So they were already on his tail and had charged him previously in the spring of 1974. So right before the Hi-Fi murders took place. And I think he was out on parole, actually.
I was going to say, so he was aware, though, that he was like nearly caught for something previously?
Yes, absolutely. He was aware.
Got it. So this could have been, I mean, it's possible that might have been an inciting incident where he thought that this was going to be his way out, his getaway. If he can get a whole bunch of money or he can steal a bunch of stuff that he can pawn off later on.
Yeah.
That's maybe this was really his way to get out of it.
I didn't even think about that. That's probably, because I do not quote me on that, but I think it had happened kind of right before the Hi-Fi murders. I'm not even sure if he went to jail, but it had just happened.
Right, because that was my question the whole time. I was like, what happened just before this? Why now? Why do it now? Why was this the night? Because it's never random. It's always because of something. It's always because they have to go somewhere after and do something with what they take.
And the task force leader, a guy named Judkins, had interviewed Dale at Barracks 351, and Detective Moore remembered this. And Pierre had an additional tie to another crime. In October 1973, there was a robbery and a homicide of another airman. I could just find him in research. His name was Jefferson. But that case was still very much so active. It was unsolved. And it's sort of a lengthy story, so I won't go too far into it. But Jefferson was at a high enough ranking where he was able to live off base. And He had stereo equipment in his house, which he had purchased from the hi-fi shop. He was known for having people over to listen to music and drink, and Pierre had been at one of his parties previously. And during the course of the party, Pierre said that he needed a ride from Jefferson back to the base. But when Jefferson went to look for his keys, he couldn't find them, mysteriously. And Pierre then came back the next day and, quote, "Oh, I found your keys." Jefferson knew that Pierre was into joyriding, and so he confronted him.
Mhm.
And a witness apparently heard them argue. I'm pretty sure this was on base camp, that Jefferson said to him, "Listen, man, if you try to steal my car, I'll tell authorities what you're up to." Jefferson's body was found days later, stabbed to death with a bayonet. They were never able to prove that this was Dale Pierre, but they had him in their fold as a suspect,
I mean,
right?
clearly has the capacity for violence and to kill.
Exactly.
Jesus.
But it helped because they were aware of Pierre as a suspect in that homicide and that auto theft case, and they knew his room was in Barracks 351, they were able to obtain a search warrant after the hi-fi shop murders and search his room. They tore it apart, but they couldn't find anything, except one of the crime scene technicians made a last-ditch effort right before they were about to leave, and he decided to look underneath a rug by Dale's bunk. And when he did, he found a lease for a storage unit that was 1 block away from the hi-fi shop. So they followed that trail, they went to the unit, and they found countless pieces of equipment stolen from the hi-fi shop. They used serial numbers to trace it, and they also found empty bottles of Drano. Wild.
Why keep that? What?
I have no
I
idea.
guess if he's just like taking evidence.
Or maybe they just shoved stuff. Yeah, maybe taking evidence or shoving.
Yeah, like, don't leave it behind if there's fingerprints or something.
Yeah, Dale doesn't strike me as the type to want a trophy after a kill. I don't think that would be a good trophy anyways, but yeah, they found it in the storage unit. So they were like, okay, this is clearly it's Dale. And so they arrested Dale Pierre and William Andrews. Now, interestingly enough, they were already being held, the two of them, for questioning. This was wild based on their behavior when police had shown up to that dumpster to where the two kids had found the IDs in the purse.
Mm-hmm.
Police had come to that scene, and there was a detective on that scene. His name was Deloy White, who purposefully made the scene very dramatic to see if he could basically incite any odd behaviors with the airmen that were standing outside. He just had a feeling that the perpetrators were probably in the crowd watching. And so from what I read, I know. So from what I read, he basically was doing these like very grand, like throwing things, and everybody was standing there quietly except for Dale and William. And they were pacing back and forth, getting visibly upset, frantically, like there was
racking their mind. They're like, what did we throw out in that dumpster?
Yeah.
They had their tells.
Exactly. And they noticed them and then asked them to come down to the station. They wanted to question them and ask them, what they knew and why they were getting so upset. So once they were able to link the equipment back to the hi-fi shop via the serial numbers, Dale Pierre, William Andrews, and their getaway driver, Keith Roberts, were arrested and charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder and 2 counts of aggravated robbery. The trial began October 15th, 1974, and ended within a month. By November 20th.
Wow, that's a very fast trial.
Very fast.
Because I was going to ask you too, and maybe you'll get into it, about their defense, about because that's kind of what I was getting at when I was like, what was actually wrong with Dale? Because I would have imagined their defense had led with something for an insanity plea, or if they could say that he was manic or he was in a psychotic state. But I was just curious if there was anything like that came up in the trial. But if it was a month long, I can't imagine.
No, and actually it took a different turn. I think it takes a turn that maybe you'll expect this, but the trial itself became more, at least the coverage I saw on it was more racially driven. And I'll touch on that in a second.
To paint the monsters as monsters, like that's what they were doing. I see.
Yeah. So by November 20th, a jury of 11 men and 1 woman found William Andrews and Dale Pierre guilty on all 5 counts. Keith Roberts was found guilty, but only on 2 counts of aggravated robbery. During the trial, a mountain of additional evidence was presented against them. Witnesses from the movie theater where they got the idea for administering the Drano, that ticket teller testified at the trial. Security guards that had seen the blue Chevy van used to haul equipment the afternoon of the 22nd.
Yeah.
A meter reader who saw Keith Roberts driving the van on the street past the hi-fi shop, etc. But of course, it was Orrin Walker's testimony that really sealed the deal. So Pierre, who was 21 at the time, and Andrews, who was 19, were sentenced to death. And like I said at the beginning of this episode, Pierre would receive the first death by lethal injection in the state of Utah at the age of 34, which was 13 years after the murders. Andrews was also executed by lethal injection in 1992.
I can't believe he was only 34.
I know.
That's crazy.
I couldn't believe they were 21 and 19 when
That's also crazy.
I know. I think you and I talk about this a lot, that it's just kind of like a sign of the times, and you look back at people and you're like, how are they that young? But I was really shocked. I could not believe that they were only 21 and 19 years old, which I guess sort of explains some of the...
Explains the dynamic of like leading with an iron fist, because even if it's somebody who's as young as 34 who's enacting this, and I'll tell you right now, Dale does not look 34 to me at all, but I can imagine the dynamic that person would have over a 19-year-old. That's somebody who calls the shots.
Yes.
That's somebody who's like, what they say goes.
So let me see here. Now, prior to their executions, Pierre had petitioned for a clemency hearing and received one, claiming that the hi-fi murders spun out of his control and that he was in a bad place due to drugs and alcohol. His appeal was denied. Andrews also had a slew of appeals and had the backup, actually, of the NAACP, who believed that the jury, which was an all-white jury, had been racially biased at the trial. And because Andrews was not the one who actually shot, Pierre was the one who shot everyone, that he should be granted a lesser sentence. These appeals were denied. Now, I found an old article where Orrin Walker stated, quote, "If there was one thing that I could do, if I had the power to do, the thing that has really struck home to us more than anything else is the length of time of Andrew's appeal. Sometimes we get to thinking maybe it's a kind of mockery, 16 years. That's almost the length of time that our son Stan lived. Almost the length of time that our son Stan lived when his life was taken." And I think that's what is most important to remember here, that the aftermath of this crime ran like shockwaves through these 5 families for the rest of their lives. Courtney Naisbitt was not able to live a healthy life. He died at the age of 44 due to his complications. Despite having given it his all and tried to make it through school, like I touched on, tried to make it through college, he eventually had to drop out, but he did get married. He led a semi-normal life, of course, without his mother. And Orrin Walker would never be able to forget the events that happened to him and the pain inflicted on both he and his son. So I just want to close us out with a final quote from Orrin, because his resilience and his perspective amazes me after all of this. He's also since passed. I believe he died at the age of 69, but he just reminds me to be so, so grateful for my life and my health and my safety, which is not always promised to us. And he said, quote, "We are not the only victims. There are many, many other people out there. There are many, many others out there, and they are all the same. Thank goodness for good people and for good experiences that help to relieve all of this pain and suffering."
Oh, God.
But that is the end of the hi-fi murders. And I know that was tough and I know that was dark, but I think it's a really...
No, but it was very well done. I will say, of course it was extremely tough, but that was very, very well done research, and the retelling of that story. I always say this, but I know it's hard to condense such massive cases and massive stories and really convey the anguish and the ripple effect of that anguish across families. But I feel like that was done really well.
Yeah, it reminds me of Night Stalker so much in that case, that it really was the ripple effect, because there were multiple siblings in those families, multiple wives, and like remarriages after that, and having to kind of carry that with you for the rest of your life it's something that I can't imagine. And it's also something that I saw so many news clippings or videos about how that case just lives in infamy in Ogden. Like, it really scared the crap out of people back then.
That was going to be my follow-up. I was going to ask about the ramifications of what it's looked like decade after decade in the area, and if people still sort of talk about it, what the shop is like now. If it, I'm assuming it's a new business, of course.
And I believe it's a Five Guys. Not sure.
Oh.
But I believe it's a Five Guys. But yeah, I mean, it seemed like every single.
For a second, that registered as I was like, how many guys were involved in this?
How many guys? Yeah, literally.
I was starting to be like, that's a very grim coincidence.
That is a very grim. Yeah. But it seemed like every single like YouTube video I found or news coverage, it was like the 20th anniversary, the 30th anniversary. I mean, they continually covered this case because it was just so shocking and brutal for the times.
Oh, I'm sure. Tell me if this feels similar, but it actually kept reminding me of Jessica Chambers a lot. She was the young girl who had gasoline poured down her throat, and then she was lit on fire internally, and they still have never definitively on paper been able to prove who did it, although Tellis is the number one suspect that they have looked at, and he was also most definitely involved in a murder of another girl. But it was the shock of how brutal the act was that seemed so motiveless. It's one thing to, not to say it's one thing, like to diminish it by any means, but it is one thing to rob somebody. It is one thing to assault somebody or possibly even murder somebody with a gun. But it's the deliberate acts of torture and to destroy a body, destroy a corpse, or make somebody go out in such a horrific way that there's something that never connects in my mind. I can't really put my finger on who that person is and why they do that and what drives them to do that. Absolutely. I know it's anger. I know there's fury behind it, but it's almost, I think it might have been to the detriment of the story that the trial was as short as it was, just so we could learn a little bit more to give some context and some answers about why Dale was so cruel and what he did.
I think I said this earlier, but there was definitely some quote I read about him saying, I basically was just filled with rage and things. He did say something to the effect of like, things spun out of control that day. That's not what that was. That was premeditated. In my opinion, that was very premeditated. And that was somebody that had a little bit of power over these 5 people and then saw an opportunity to get them in a space where they couldn't go anywhere and do his worst, knowing that there was time being spent hauling stuff in and out. I mean, you could have just sat there and held them hostage and not have done that. And especially when Oren wasn't dying, that he was like, I'm going to kill you and you're going to really suffer. Like the ballpoint pen thing is just.
That also reminded me of Ellen Halbert, I think, if that's the correct case I'm thinking of, where jammed, I believe it was a knife into her skull and then stamped on it.
Yes.
Stomping on the knife.
Yes.
Like the brutality of that. But also the only thing that, not to say that this was opportunistic, I agree with you that this was absolutely premeditated. The only thing that threw it into peril, I guess, it was the introduction of several different people they didn't anticipate, which would have been Courtney coming in, which would have been Courtney's mother. It was Courtney's mother, correct?
Yes.
As well as the father, Oren. Yeah, so they had a number of people to contest with they probably weren't prepared for. So maybe in that way, in their minds, they thought it got out of control and we had to do what we were already planning to do to everybody else. And when people weren't dying, we had to improvise.
I do question too. I remember reading that Dale liked music. I mean, he liked going into the shop because he liked buying records, and he actually did know Stan, just very briefly. Like he would go in there and interact with him occasionally.
Yeah, like a casual retail connection.
So I think there is a part of me that thinks when they got in there, Dale saw that Stan was working and was probably like, okay, this will be easier than I thought. And they started doing the whole thing. But there was so much equipment that they took that I think once more characters started coming into the fold, he was like, all right, you know what? This is an opportunity for me to just make this hell for. I guess they must have anticipated at some point that, because they brought the Drano with them, of course. So
that was my question. Did they bring the Drano, or was it already
they brought
in
the Drano? Okay. They brought the Drano, which is how they were able to point to them in court. Like this was definitely premeditated at some level, and of course, him going to see the movie. But I do think at some point when people started arriving and more characters were getting introduced, in his sick mind, Dale was like, oh, I hate even saying this, but like, I'm going to have my fun with this. I'm going to do whatever I just am feeling in the moment. And it's horrendous.
I have no pity for this person at all.
I don't either.
I have no
Yeah.
pity. So I don't want this to get misconstrued, but any of my interest in his backstory, it is in no way an attempt to humanize him anymore. It is just a method to try to understand this level of cruelty in people.
Yeah.
Because it's rooted in rage. And he said, I was just angry. Of course, everybody's angry, but there's something else going on there, or
Of
something
course.
happened to him that incited this.
Of course. Well, maybe there is more that we know about him. I just personally didn't see much about his backstory and upbringing.
It sounds like even if there was, it was kind of like, it was uninteresting to the media. He didn't want to share, or the media also didn't want to dig into it, because it sounded like they wanted to close the book on this really quick.
Yeah. But to your point, there's a reason why they study this at Quantico. It's to understand the mind of somebody that's premeditating something so sadistic and excessively violent.
Absolutely. And the danger of the power that they have over accomplices.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they were able to rally together, 5 different people?
Mm-hmm.
Dale was able to rally to get 5. I was going to ask, so in the end, was everyone identified, or were there still some people who were left? Was it 3 who were left
3.
anonymous?
Mm-hmm.
That's insane.
Yeah. I mean,
they could still be alive. I mean, there could be people still out there today.
Yeah. They don't know that it was 6 men in total, but they figured from the guy that called in and then just the amount of stuff that was taken, they figured that it probably had to be at least 5 or 6 people in total that executed the whole thing in the amount of time it took.
Do you know anything about the van? How many seats the van had? Or was it just like a cargo van?
Point.
Like 2 seats up front and like a big open back?
I think it was a blue, all I saw was it was a blue Chevy van. But I'd imagine it was probably like a cargo van.
It would make the most sense if they were trying to get a lot of equipment. Then people were just kind of like in the back of the van holding it. So we could never tell how many were actually there.
Mm-hmm.
That is an insane story.
Isn't that crazy? And I even saw that there were, I saw that there were some podcasters that like don't even cover it really, because it's just so, or they'd refuse to cover it, I guess, because it is so just diabolical and sadistic. But I just think that as long as we can frame it in a way where we're talking about the resilience and the survivors and just bring it to light so that these people didn't die in vain, I think it's important.
Absolutely. That was really what I kind of took away from it at the end, was Oren and how valuable his testimony, being one of the only survivors who could testify, how valuable that was to actually closing this case. That's the thing that I took away. His resilience to fight through, and whether he was cognizant of that or not, or whether he wanted to survive on behalf of his son and what had been done to make sure that he was going to be around to tell this story. That's why it's important. That's why it's important to still tell the story today. So I definitely understand. I've been doing this for 3 or 4 years now. I understand the instinct to shy away from the cases that are particularly brutal. It's really difficult, but sometimes those are the ones that are important to resurrect, to remind people of what really happened.
Yeah. Well, baby, that was all I had on the hi-fi murders.
That was excellently done, and you did it flawlessly while looking at this. So
I was going to say thank you, Reagan.
No, that was really compelling story.
You wait, get closer again. Oh God, that is truly like something that you have sent me and made me watch on TikTok when we're live on After Dark. Those teeth,
so
baby.
Wretched.
Oh my God.
The TikToks that will be made.
The TikToks will. Can we please go live on Insta after this?
No, I was going to say, I mean, by the time people listen to this, I think that we should do this one where we do it as a reveal. Where I think what we should do after this, I think we should take. We could pre-record it live and just put it out as live. I'm not above it. If we could take a little second of reprieve, I think what we should do, we should take 2 separate pictures of us as is, and then I think we should blur it out and say, like, you got to tune in on Thursday on Halloween night to really see what the finale looks like. And then Friday, we'll probably like blast everybody and be like,
oh God, creepers. I just wish that the camera quality on Riverside was just a hair heightened so I could just get you in like full 4K.
It's only when we're recording live that our camera quality is like,
it's
like 480. When it exports, it's pretty good.
It is pretty good. Yeah. it's a tease even for me. Wait, what would Reagan's go-to karaoke song be?
Late at night, I toss and I turn and I see you in my dreams. I need a hero. I need a hero in the night.
Gotta be good.
And what would Bride of Frankenstein's be?
Total eclipse of the heart.
I really thought I was about to get Bernadette Peters. I really thought.
This is giving Bernadette.
Time. It is. When you first came on, I don't know what I thought you were when you first came on, but I did not immediately register Bride of Frankenstein.
Well, you couldn't tell from the lab? How hilarious is this?
I wasn't sure what that was. I thought it was just a tapestry of like, I don't know, a medieval painting or something. I was like, what's going on back there?
You were
You've
like,
inspired
that's
me,
just
though.
more of Stu's stuff. I know, it is kind of fun.
You know what's in that book behind me, right up here?
Bodies, bodies, bodies.
Nudity. Nudity in that book.
We know what Reagan is up to.
Not who. What are some of the other quotes that she has?
Oh God.
What does she say? We've done all the good ones. Lovely day for an exorcism.
Oh yes. God. Maybe I'll watch Exorcist finally. Maybe I'll watch it tonight.
Good. Wait, so you still haven't seen it yet?
Still haven't seen it.
Okay.
Just been teasing myself with it.
Do you know what? Is it on Netflix or is it on Max? Because if it's Netflix, we should do a Netflix watch party or something. Just if.
Oh my God. Yes.
Or we can like
totally
live
should.
watch. That was a big thing
Yes.
during COVID that I like missed out on because my sister was doing it with people. And I'm like, I kind of want to do it.
Yes. I feel like I did that on Hulu a couple of times, actually, with Garrett to watch Real Housewives during COVID. I'm like,
That's worth
that's
it.
dark.
Well, I want to watch when the new the premiere is coming out for season. Is it season 14 that we're in with Beverly Hills?
Yes.
And I've seen the
and
trailers
woman,
look pretty
what
good.
the heck is her name? The actress from Chucky.
Oh, Jennifer Tilly.
Jennifer Tilly. I love that she's on it.
There's 2 new cast members, I think.
Yes, there is one other.
I'm not sure who she is, but she's pretty well known in the space. Sutton said something about her. And She
Yeah.
was like, she is the one.
She is. I saw something at Sutton the other day where they were
Look at
asking
this
her
tongue.
about. Does her tongue split in the movie or anything, or is it just?
No, it's a fake tongue over her tongue, so it's wicked long. And she's like,
That's right. I knew there was something weird.
this is the most disgusting I have looked all month. If you thought long legs was bad,
But Silas, it is. I mean, it's incredible. You really ought to like give a little tutorial on how you've been doing the makeup looks, especially because
but I've been following tutorials. That's the
you've
thing.
been following them. Is there anybody
Yeah.
in particular that you follow that does like prosthetics or like actual like SF or what am I trying to say? Special effects.
Yeah, special
makeup.
effects. Not really, because like none of this is special effects makeup. Like all of like the scars are just drawn on with concealer and then shadowing. Because so there's no like latex or anything. Like I didn't do any latex this season. It was all just shadowing.
That's next season.
Christmas, baby. It's Christmas.
We're going if we don't.
But also,
get
this
in-
wig is falling back. I'm literally Karen from Potomac. The
Oh my
Grand
God.
Dame.
The Grand Dame. Which, by the way, there's a new Potomac housewife who used to be a QVC host.
There's a pipeline. There's a pipeline.
There's a 3-line there.
Why isn't this all right? Hopefully it's there we
Okay,
go.
now you look even more ill. It's phenomenal.
Look at the nose.
I could just sit on here forever and just talk about
The teeth
talk
are
about
truly,
the looks.
the teeth are so
The
disgusting.
teeth are insane.
Somebody's gonna have to put me away. I'm surprised
Baby.
they've held up, honestly. Like I thought they were gonna like bleed away really quick.
I'm 2 years away from those being my teeth. 2 years.
Maybe this is when you
One
switch
more
from
root
Sprite
canal.
Zero to Sprite with actual sugar. You're gonna be like, here for my checkup.
I show up to my dentist in my hometown. Hi. They would be like, "Oh my God, come on back." They would like wouldn't even bat an eye.
There's so much hair and like blood gel in it. Ugh. There's so much going on. This month has made me realize I feel like I dislike wigs and I dislike nails. But also
Yeah.
the first costume I've done without nails, Reagan.
Who would have thought? Who would have thought? Oh,
Well, if we can close us out here, I just want to say thank you to the Creepers for
Yes.
joining us for what a spectacular Halloween season. I mean, it has been back-to-back costumes week over week. It has been so fun to do this with you guys while we're doing run-of-the-mill creep time, while we're looking at cases in succession of the tour dates. But this has been like one of the best months of the year, honestly.
This has been so much fun. Creepers, your interactions with us have been so hilarious and heartwarming. Like, whenever I see somebody being like, Silas, go off with that makeup, I'm like, yes. Like, recognize the artistry.
Well, they look at me and they're like, you're serving, bitch. And I'm like,
unless it's the Cinderella stepsister or whatever.
oh, that was Rinna. That was... And the thing is, after they said it, I totally saw it. And I was like, oh,
I know.
shit.
But it's okay.
Listen, I can't help it if I look like a man. I can't help that.
Exactly. You're like, this is what God gave me.
I'm working with the canvas I have. Okay. I think your costume today is truly like such a winner for the season for you. Like, this is spectacular. God. That wig is amazing. I'm afraid to ask you how much you spent on it.
Definitely too much. I will tell you too much. But you know what? I thought to myself, I can use this wig for this costume for the rest of my life.
That's true.
It will pay itself off because I'm sure
you will win costume
contests
contests because the wig is everything for it. Like, for this costume, the wig is everything.
Yeah. And you know what is funny? I just felt after watching that movie, like, I just love that actress. I love that. And she's only in the movie for like 10 minutes.
I gotta watch. I think I only watched a lot of those older movies, like the older Universal movies and monster movies when I was a kid, because my dad was obsessed with them. Like, we watched The Wolfman and Dracula. Like, we watched all of the classic monster movies, Creature of the Black Lagoon, and they're all under Universal. But it's been a long time since I've seen them. I'd have to go back and kind of resurrect.
There is something really like fun and like old world Halloween spooky about it. It's fun to watch them.
Yeah, but, I mean, it's the bedrock for, I guess, it's original horror, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
I do remember, The Wolfman was one that I used to watch quite a bit, because the way they would do the transition was quite literally as simple as just like fading between two shots. Like, it was like the special effects were so ridiculously like so simple, but like literally just like this actor like, and then it fades to another shot of him where he's not even in the same place. He's like 2 inches over and he's in Wolfman makeup, and it's like, that man just transitioned on camera. We just thought
it is really funny because when I watch Bride of Frankenstein, there's a scene where Frankenstein comes out and like scares one of the women in the town, and she just goes like starts screaming. I was just like, wow, the acting chops back then were incredible.
you never know if like it was just something where like it was a practice take or something and an editor missed it, because I used to see this scene in because I was a Goosebumps kid. I used to watch Night of the Living Dummy, and there's a scene where the first part where Slappy comes to life, the dummy, and all 3 people in the house, the sister, the little brother, and the cousin, are in the living room, and they all scream. 2 of the kids, the boys, actually scream. The sister, if you go back and watch it, Slappy comes to life. She literally goes, ah.
Mel.
She's gonna listen to this and be like,
I know. But I love that. I love that about Mel. I feel like Mel, like the 2 of us could be running amok and she'd be like, sit down, shut up, I got this. I feel like
Mel is very, she is very grounded and very mature for her age.
Yeah, I think she's so mature. I love her. And she's got micro bangs. Reagan's kind of rocking them too.
Okay, also the bangs were too long. I did my own cutting of this wig.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Did it come with bangs at all, or did you have to cut?
Oh no, it came with bangs like really far down, like way too low, and then the hair was a little bit longer, so I had to like trim it. I tried to get as accurate as I could. I'm trying to go somewhere tonight.
Baby, I'm trying to get on a plane and come see you, because we need to go somewhere.
I'm gonna listen. This costume will see other days other than this, but I want to thank you. This was amazing. What a spectacular Halloween episode. I'm sad all the costumes are gone.
I know, I'm so sad too. No. I have had such a blast with this. Thank you for doing this with me every week too. And the Creepers, it's all for the Creepers. I mean, let's be real. It is for us because we love doing this, but it's for the Creepers.
It really is. But we should also say, we should give credit where credit is due. This was your idea. It was your idea originally that we would do this.
Oh yeah. Oh, was I think I was like, it would be kind of fun to do a Halloween costume, and then the theater kid in both of us was like, yes.
I mean, the idea, it morphed a little bit, but you had the bedrock idea where you were like, we should definitely do costumes for sure this season.
Oh,
And
well,
we should do video pods, but we made it
I had
happen.
one good idea.
Look at this. I thought about going the extra mile and doing green vomit down the chest. I really didn't have the time because I took, an extra 2 hours this morning after we were supposed to start.
Oh, so well, listen, I was doing the same thing. I started putting on, first of all, they don't tell you, and we'll wrap this, but a freaking lace front is hard.
Oh,
to,
yeah.
like,
Did
get
you
it to
glue
be
it?
Yeah, I found spirit gum. I was like, "Wow, please God, let me have the
I love that we're just like
Zach
reusing
Bagans."
all the stuff
Yeah,
we have.
yeah.
I'm popping off the nails from Long Legs and I'm putting them on for Rinna. Like,
You're putting them
again.
on your teeth for Reagan. Oh God,
it's foul.
I'm so foul.
Shall we wrap it, my dear?
Let's wrap it. Let's say goodbye.
And good luck. We can't wait to see you guys on tour. Get your
Yes.
tickets at creeptime.com, babies.
Yes, and have the best Halloween.
Stay safe. Happy Halloween.
Bye, creepers.